A heavy mist clung to the treetops, swallowing every sound beneath the canopy. Strike Team Viper tightened their formation with each step, the enemy closing the noose around them. Crackles of broken transmission flickered through their comms, the language of desperation. Branches snapped in the undergrowth, boots advancing closer with every second. Corporal Nathaniel Gran pressed his shoulder to the dirt, whispering into his headset with a voice that trembled. "We're trapped. No exit left. This might be it." The jungle answered with silence, save for the pounding of adrenaline-fueled hearts. For a breath, it seemed the world itself had gone still. Then, cutting across the static like steel through cloth, a calm female voice flowed into their ears. "Target in sight. Give me 1 second." Ever been certain the curtain was falling until one unseen ally rewrote the ending? Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward moved through Fort Ridgeway like a shadow, present, yet barely acknowledged. At 29, standing just over 5'4", her chestnut hair bound in a regulation, bun and eyes that observed everything while revealing nothing, she was easy to overlook. Her smaller frame often invited casual dismissal from Marines, who dominated the sniper ranks. Ward can hit targets on paper, Lieutenant Jason Foster liked to remark in mess halls. Always just loud enough for her to hear. But sniping isn't only about hitting bullseyes. It's about presence. It's about fear. She doesn't project it. Corporal Nathaniel Gran, fresh from boot camp but already brimming with arrogance, would nod in quick agreement. Real snipers don't just fire rounds. They send a message. If you see them, you're already dead. Ward? She's like a tag-along who happens to shoot straight. Olivia never fired back. She had learned long ago that arguments couldn't sway those who had already decided she didn't belong. Instead, she poured herself into the details others ignored. While most spent their nights trading combat stories and boasting about kills at the enlisted club, Olivia stayed in the weather station, logging wind changes and atmospheric shifts with the precision of a scientist. Her battered notebook was crammed with pages of equations, ballistic formulas, powder burn calculations, humidity charts, and the effects of temperature on muzzle velocity. Why obsess over all that weather data? Private Adam Mitchell once asked, watching her track wind direction while the rest fired with instinct alone. She's overthinking it, Gran scoffed. Snipers trust their gut. But when sudden crosswinds swept the range that afternoon, every other shooter's rounds veered off course. Olivia's didn't. Her calculations carried her bullets to the target with flawless precision. It should have been proof enough. A step toward recognition, perhaps even advanced training. Instead, the achievement was brushed aside as luck, a fortunate guess. Nothing more. Her days settled into a rhythm of solitude. She cleaned her rifle alone. She studied maps under dim light. She ran breathing drills in silence while others bonded over beer and laughter. Yet, one look at her service file would have shattered their shallow judgments. Ward quietly held the base's unofficial record for longest confirmed hit, shots stretching the limits of her rifle. She had excelled in advanced courses covering urban combat, desert operations, and jungle warfare, consistently ranking among the top 5%. She even carried level 4 clearance, an authorization usually reserved for those working black operations. None of this mattered to the men around her. To them, she remained a small woman trying to wedge her way into a space built by louder, harder personalities. The latest briefing suggested sniper support for an upcoming reconnaissance mission. Yet Ward's name was conspicuously absent from the roster. No one thought to tell her about the deployment unfolding into the Highlands, but while Bravo Unit prepared for what they assumed was a routine intel sweep, Olivia was already poring over satellite images, mapping Overwatch sites, and noting fallback zones for scenarios no one else bothered to plan. 18 hours later, Bravo was staring down annihilation. The intelligence had been disastrously wrong. What should have been a small outpost turned out to be a fortified staging hub. 60 well-armed fighters with advanced communications and heavy weapons. Alpha Base, this is Bravo, Captain Daniel Harper whispered into his radio, pressed into the undergrowth as enemy patrols swept dangerously close. We've got a situation. Numbers are 10 times higher than reported. For long seconds, the only answer was static. Finally, a strained voice came back. Bravo! Alpha Base, you require immediate extraction. No extraction possible, Harper shot back. Eyes on enemy squads tightening the perimeter. We're boxed in. Machine guns, overlapping rifles, and tactical sweeps. They knew we were coming. Through his night optics, Harper saw enemy leaders moving with chilling precision, seasoned fighters, not disorganized rebels. This was a coordinated trap meant to capture or obliterate American special forces. The jungle went still, a suffocating hush pressing in from every side. What the? Sergeant Caleb Turner began, but Captain Daniel Harper shot his hand up, signaling silence. Then the radio hissed, carrying a steady voice. Bravo team, you've got overwatch. Call your marks. The voice was female, calm, confident, and absolutely unauthorized. No sniper should have been attached to their mission. Before Harper could even answer, another shot cracked through the night. 200 meters away, a fighter hidden behind a fallen tree pitched lifelessly into the dirt. The round had come from high ground behind Bravo's position. But even with thermal optics, Harper couldn't trace the shooter's location. Holy hell, Turner muttered as panic rippled through enemy ranks, confusion spreading faster than gunfire. Who the hell is that? The mysterious sniper kept firing. Each shot deliberate. Each shot final. No wasted bullets, no hesitation. And somehow she was tracking Bravo's every move, synchronizing with them as though she had trained beside them for years. Whenever Harper's team shifted, suppressive fire erupted from fresh angles, cutting lanes through the jungle and pinning enemy squads in place. Bravo team, adjust to grid 147 by 298, clear firing lanes there. Harper froze. Taking orders from an unknown asset violated every rule of engagement. But staying meant certain death. Moving to 147 by 298, he finally replied, his voice tight. They crawled through the undergrowth, and as they advanced, bursts of fire erupted from seemingly 3 different points. Enemy fighters fell in droves. Either she wasn't working alone, or she was maneuvering so quickly. It felt like multiple shooters. 15 grueling minutes later, the jungle was quiet again. What had been 60 hostile fighters was reduced to a handful of survivors, fleeing into the dark, abandoning weapons and leaving bodies behind. Bravo, extraction is green. The woman's voice came again, crisp through the radio. Helo inbound in 20. Harper scanned the treetops, searching for the unseen guardian who had turned their slaughter into survival. Unknown sniper, identify yourself, he demanded. Who cleared your mission? A pause, static hummed. Then the voice returned, calm as before. Sometimes clearance comes after the mission, not before. Alpha Base will explain when you're back. Rotor blades thundered in the distance. For a fleeting second, Harper thought he saw a dark figure sliding down from the canopy, rope swaying with the movement. But when he blinked, the shadow was gone. Who was that? Turner asked, eyes wide as they moved toward the landing zone. Harper shook his head, gaze sweeping across the battlefield littered with surgical kill shots. Each placement flawless, each decision executed under conditions that would have broken most elite marksmen. I don't know, he admitted quietly. But whoever she is, she just saved every one of us. Before we begin the official debrief, Harrington said, his voice edged with classified weight, we need to address the unauthorized sniper support you received last night. Captain Harper shifted in his chair uneasily. Sir, we assume the sniper was assigned to us. Cleared and authorized. That's what makes this complicated, Harrington replied, sliding open a folder stamped with clearance codes Harper had never even heard of. Major Edward Stone stepped into the room, his tone clipped and absolute. The sniper who intervened operates under directives that officially don't exist. A 30-year veteran of special operations entered the briefing room, a thick manila envelope tucked under his arm. His weathered face carried the weight of decades, spent inside missions the world would never hear about. Gentlemen, what I'm about to say stays in this room, Major Edward Stone began, settling into the chair at the head of the table. His tone was sharp, absolute. The sniper who covered you last night was Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward. On paper, Ward was discharged from active duty 18 months ago. Captain Daniel Harper frowned, leaning forward. Discharged? For what reason? Stone slid the envelope open and spread photographs across the table. Each image showed a small framed woman in full ghillie suit, nearly invisible against desert rock or jungle brush. Her rifle was set in positions that seemed physically unreachable. Ward was part of a classified program known as Phantom Operations, Stone explained, a unit of precision shooters trained for reconnaissance and eliminations where official footprints couldn't exist. These weren't just snipers, they were ghosts. Alongside the photographs were mission reports, confirmed kills at ranges beyond 2,800 meters, distances most considered impossible with even the most advanced rifles. She was the best we ever trained, Stone admitted, his voice carrying reluctant pride. She could dissolve into terrain that others couldn't crawl through. Strike targets no one believed reachable, and survive for weeks behind enemy lines with nothing but her kit. Sergeant Caleb Turner studied one photo. Ward descending by rope from a helicopter into jagged mountains under the cover of night. His jaw tightened. So why cut her loose? Stone's expression darkened. Because during a black operation in Syria 18 months ago, she broke direct orders to save a Marine, recon team that had been written off as expendable. The room fell into silence as the weight of it settled. The mission was simple, Stone continued. Neutralize a high-value target and exfil immediately. But Ward intercepted chatter. 12 Marines pinned down, certain to die. Her standing orders were clear. Avoid all distractions. Focus on the primary kill. Captain Harper already knew where this was headed. His voice was low. She ignored her orders. She stayed in the fight for 14 hours, Stone confirmed. Cut down waves of attackers from angles that defied physics. Rescued all 12 Marines. But she missed the extraction and survived. 6 days behind hostile lines, before linking back with friendlies. Colonel James Harrington leaned forward, hands clasped on the table. Technically, the mission was completed, but her disobedience caused political fallout. The target's death had to be disavowed, and Ward became a liability, someone who knew too much about operations that were never meant to exist. So they dumped her, Turner muttered bitterly. Not exactly, Stone corrected. She was given a choice. Accept discharge with full benefits and a clean record, or face court-martial for disobeying direct orders. She chose discharge, but only on one condition. She could still be called when no other option existed. The pieces clicked into place for Harper. His voice was steady, quiet. That's why we weren't scheduled for sniper support. The mission was supposed to stay off the books. But when it collapsed, someone made the call. Exactly, Harrington said, his gaze sharp. Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward doesn't exist in any roster now. But when American lives hang in the balance and no conventional asset can be risked, she appears. Major Edward Stone gathered the photographs and files, sliding them back into the manila envelope destined for whatever vault kept truths locked away. The woman who pulled you out has existed in a shadow space for the last 18 months, he said. No pay, no rank, no recognition. She surfaces only when impossible problems demand solutions no one else can deliver. Captain Daniel Harper couldn't shake the echo of that calm, precise voice that had guided them through certain death. How does she even manage it? Gear, intelligence, transport, who supplies all of that? Colonel James Harrington fixed him with a steady look. That's above your clearance. What I will say is this. There are people in high places who understand that saving lives sometimes requires resources the official record can never admit. As the briefing drew to a close, Harper wrestled with the reality. Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward had given up her career, her benefits, even her existence on paper for a nation that could never acknowledge her sacrifices. Sir, one more question, Harper asked as Stone stood to leave. Why tell us any of this? Why not just let us believe it was standard support? Stone paused at the doorway. For a moment, the hardened lines of his face softened into something like sorrow, edged with respect. Because that woman risked everything to save you, he said quietly. And she'll never see credit, never wear the medals she's earned. The least we can do is make sure the men she rescued understand what she gave up to be there. The room remained heavy with silence as Bravo team rose from their seats. One by one they filed out, each man carrying the unshakable knowledge that their survival had been purchased at a cost no record would honor. By someone who had chosen service over comfort, duty over career, and the lives of strangers over her own recognition. Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward had become more myth than soldier. A presence whispered about in the darker corners of operations, there in moments of collapse and gone before anyone could process what happened. Bound to no unit, answerable to no chain of command, she existed in the blind spot of bureaucracy, a mission without acknowledgement, a sacrifice without ledger, when Bravo's survival filtered through the unofficial channels. Her part was never mentioned in writing. No after-action report bore her name. And yet the story moved like wildfire across the community, not in official memos, but in low voices between men who knew that some truths live outside ink and paper. At Fort Ridgeway, signs of her lingered in ways the system couldn't erase. A photo appeared one morning on the ready room wall. Nothing but the outline of a lone marksman in jungle haze. Captioned simply, Guardian Angel. It wasn't recognition. It was reverence. Captain Daniel Harper carried it heavier than most. He retold their survival to anyone who would listen. His words taut with the weight of someone who'd been rescued from the impossible. She saved 12 lives without hesitation. No authorization. No chain of command. No expectation of praise, he said quietly. 14 hours on hostile ground, carving out miracles shot by shot. The ripples reached further than Bravo. Lieutenant Jason Foster, who had once dismissed Ward as too small, too untested for a sniper's role, found himself at Major Edward Stone's door 3 days after the briefing. His usual confidence had thinned into something raw. "Sir, I need to ask about Ward," he admitted. Stone studied him carefully. "What about her?" "I was wrong," Foster whispered. "All those things I said about her, I didn't understand." The Major's reply was measured, almost reverent. Olivia Ward changed what a sniper is. She showed it was never about intimidation. It was about patience, invisibility, and precision when it mattered most. Those lessons seeped into doctrine. Training schools began reshaping their curriculum. Instructors now spoke of silence over spectacle, of unseen accuracy over fear-driven dominance. Corporal Nathaniel Gran, who once ridiculed her obsession with weather data, was now the one hunched over wind charts, telling his partner, Ward was right. The best don't gamble, they calculate. Among junior snipers, a quiet ritual took root. During the harshest exercises, when exhaustion blurred judgment and targets felt impossible, someone would whisper, "What would Ward do?" The question became mantra, a reminder that greatness comes not from bravado, but from skill sharpened in the unseen hours. The deepest tribute, however, was silence. Records were broken, impossible shots were debated, but when her shadow fell over those stories, her name was left unspoken. Everyone already knew. One evening, Harper crossed the sniper school compound and caught sight of a faint light glowing in the control booth. Through the glass, a lone figure bent over ballistic charts and meteorological data, her posture eerily familiar. For a moment, his chest tightened. Was it her? That same unshakable presence from the jungle? He blinked and the booth was empty. Weeks later, during inventory, several top-tier sniper tools were discovered returned, under clearance codes that officially didn't exist. Meticulously cleaned, flawlessly maintained. No one logged a report. No one dared. Some guardians worked best unseen, and those who knew her impact didn't need signatures to prove it. 6 months passed. The next crisis erupted not in jungles but across the jagged Afghan mountains. A CIA operative had gone dark, Agent Daniel Pierce, embedded for 18 months mapping terror networks along the Pakistan border. His cover shattered. He was now fleeing across 50 square miles of hostile wilderness with over 100 fighters closing in. Every available bird was stuck on the ground, weather sealing the skies like a locked vault. Colonel James Harrington stood before the operators, his tone sharp, stripped of hope. Satellite confirms enemy columns converging from 3 directions. Pierce has 12 hours at best before he's trapped in a box with no way out. The silence in the room was heavy, suffocating. Maps showed jagged ridges and valleys designed to devour helicopters. No approach routes, no landing zones, no safe corridors. The Afghan frontier didn't just resist rescue, it consumed it. "Sir," Captain Daniel Harper broke in, his voice low but carrying. "What about extreme range overwatch? Couldn't we at least—" Harrington didn't let him finish. "Denied. The distances involved outstrip anything we've fielded. There isn't a rifle in our inventory capable of that shot." For a beat, no one spoke. The operators shifted in their seats, the unspoken truth pressing down, like the mountains on the map. There was no conventional play here. And then, almost too quiet to notice, Major Edward Stone exhaled and said, "There's one person who might reach that far." The room turned. Lieutenant Jason Foster frowned, skeptical. "Sir, with all respect, that's fantasy. Nobody touches that kind of range." Stone leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Not nobody. Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward has done it. Off the books. No recognition, no official record. But she has." The name hit the room like a live round. Everyone knew it. Half myth, half warning. She'd been erased from rosters. Her existence scrubbed, yet the operators whispered anyway. The ghost sniper who appeared when problems outgrew doctrine, Sergeant Caleb Turner muttered under his breath, almost to himself. "Ward's not supposed to exist anymore." Harrington's expression hardened. "She doesn't. Not in any way you'll ever document. But when the impossible is the only option left..." He let the thought hang, unfinished but heavy. Harper stared at the grainy satellite photo of Agent Daniel Pierce, sprinting alone across ridgelines with death closing in from every side. He remembered the calm steel of Ward's voice during another chaos-stained night, the way she made the impossible seem almost ordinary. "Sir," Harper asked carefully, "how do we even reach her?" Stone paused, then answered with a trace of grim respect. "You don't reach her. If she decides Pierce is worth saving, she'll find you first. The operators exchanged looks, half disbelief, half desperate hope. For years, they'd lived by clear chains of command, predictable support structures, documented missions, and now their survival and Pierce's balanced on the decision of one woman who lived in the shadows, armed only with skill, silence, and a rifle that answered to no flag. Harrington closed the briefing with words that hung in every man's chest. Gentlemen, pray that Ward is watching. We're looking at shots beyond 3,000 meters, across mountain passes where crosswinds shred ballistics into chaos. The operations room froze, every operator doing the math silently. Firing at that distance and shifting air currents wasn't just difficult, it was impossible with any weapon they'd ever trained on. Yet Colonel James Harrington's eyes carried something unspoken, a memory buried in classified files. There are capabilities not listed in standard inventory, he said carefully. The door opened and Major Edward Stone stepped in, a worn folder under his arm. Once it had carried grim warnings. Tonight his expression bore something different, relief, mingled with quiet respect. Gentlemen, Stone announced, placing the file on the table, Agent Daniel Pierce's extraction will be executed by assets that officially do not exist. I can't explain further, but someone with the necessary skills has already accepted the mission. Captain Daniel Harper's gaze swept across his men. They didn't need names spoken aloud. Every man in the room knew who it was. Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward had been called into conditions so unforgiving they tested not just human endurance, but the limits of technology itself. 18 hours later, against all odds, Pierce limped onto the tarmac at Bagram Air Base. His uniform was torn, his body drained, but his eyes carried a spark. During debrief, he recounted fragments that silenced the room. I never saw who it was, Pierce admitted, but someone was there, covering me. Every time they closed in, shots came from distances no rifle should have been able to reach. It was like a guardian angel was watching over me. No official report mentioned her. No medal bore her name, but the story moved through the quiet. Channel soldiers trust more than newspapers or commendations. Ward's unseen hand became legend. Young marksmen began speaking of the Ward range, not a number, but a symbol of pushing past the possible. Instructors whispered challenges. Are you training to be just a sniper? Or are you ready to go Ward level, ready to attempt the impossible? Across bases, a ritual appeared. A single empty chair never sat in. Sometimes a rangefinder rested there. Sometimes a folded radio. Sometimes just silence. Operators called them guardian posts, tributes to those who shield without recognition, whose watch is eternal. One evening, as Captain Harper prepared his kit for another deployment, he noticed a guardian post in his ready room. On the seat lay a single note. Coordinates, the same valley where Bravo had once been trapped. Below, in block letters, 4 words. Some shadows cast light. By dawn, the note was gone, but the truth remained. Olivia Ward was still out there, watching unseen. Not a ghost, not a myth, just a soldier whose legend no file could contain. Her legacy lived not in ceremony, but in the respect of those who understood what true service demanded. Her story became a lesson whispered quietly between units, never shouted from podiums. It showed that true guardians rarely seek the stage. They choose the shadows, where duty outweighs applause. Her example carried a truth every operator came to respect. That those who've endured the deepest scars often rise to shield others from the same fate. Valor, she proved, wasn't ribbons or ceremony, but the silent decision to step into the line of fire when no one else dared. Strength revealed itself not in recognition, but in the unseen act of bringing brothers and sisters home. Across bases, empty chairs began to appear, not forgotten, not abandoned, but honored. Sometimes a headset rested there, sometimes a scope, sometimes nothing at all, just presence and absence. They weren't furniture. They were markers, reminders that somewhere out there, someone unseen had their back. Operators called them sentinel stations, and the name spread like wildfire, a tribute that could never be written into official orders. Late one night, as Captain Daniel Harper prepared for deployment, he noticed a slip of paper tucked under the edge of a sentinel station chair. No name, no signature, only coordinates. And beneath them, 4 words, scrawled in steady block letters. Shadows don't forget. By dawn, the paper was gone, but its weight lingered. Staff Sergeant Olivia Ward's presence still lived among them. Not on lists, not in headlines, but in the unshakable certainty that when the impossible closed in, There was someone in the dark, watching, ready. Her legend didn't grow from stories told to the public, but from the unspoken respect of warriors who knew the cost of her silence. And it left behind one enduring truth. Sometimes salvation doesn't arrive from the brightest beacon, but from a single voice in the quiet. Steady and certain, I see them, hold on. Comment with a single if you believe even one unseen protector can change everything. Subscribe to Black and Wronged if you know not every hero has to stand in the light to change the outcome.